The Beef and Barnzy Show, brought to you by Bowlersmart.com, trusted by bowlers around the world since 2004. By Lightning Strikes Bowl, home of Bowlers Mart Pro Shop. By Platinum Ford, drive the difference. By Fire Lake Bowling Center, 24 state-of-the-art lanes. By True Grit Coatings, drive on our passion. By Road to Grip, king of them all. By 900 Global, striking worldwide.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Beef Show. Of course, Chris is in Japan doing his version of his Taylor Swift Eras tour. So him and Ryan are gallivanting around. I think they have six venues. So yeah. So I reached out to a couple of people. Nobody was available today. So I thought I would come on here and have a chat with you about some balls and kind of how I rank the balls and how it might help you guys to look at the balls a little differently so that you don't end up with a bunch of balls that are exactly the same. Now, this is all very much like opinion based. It's not really necessarily like super fact based. It's off what I see with my eyes. Yeah, the Aggie, hello, nice to see you on Tuesday. Billy, nice to see you too. Hello, good morning. Hey Dan, good morning. Jay, nice to see you again. Kevin, hello. Eli, Bob. Yeah, we've got everybody here. The Mitch man says, I was hoping Vengeance would make an appearance. We're going to chat about Vengeance as well. But Bob, love my new Hyperdrive Pearl. Well, that's good. Glad you liked that one. Yeah, your ringer must have been off. Yeah, I guess I got the right. I guess you didn't send me your new number. Morning, Martin. Good morning. How are we doing? Hey, Bob, first Facebook. Thank you. Nice to see you. I've heard that Trump wants to host a PBA event in Greenland. Remember, the Thule Air Base had the first lanes a long time ago, so it's logical. Yeah, sure. Okay. Morning, Paulie. Hope you're doing a bit better. So, all right, let's crack on with this. Hopefully, this will bring out some questions that people have. But here we go. So I've got a little simple spreadsheet here. I've done a couple of balls to try and give us an idea of what we're doing. And we can kind of build this, and these numbers can kind of change, and you can also do it slightly differently, kind of each time. It's not like as you put balls in, some of the numbers are going to change because you're going to think about, well, if that one's here, then it's probably, a little bit more responsive or whatever. So we've got responsiveness. That is to the friction. And that kind of means how quickly it's going to change direction from being, having its side rotation to being forward. So for me, urethane is like basically the slowest response of the balls we use. And then I guess historically, like a high road pearl would have changed direction really quickly, right? So that's how I do this in my mind. Then I do length, which is it's kind of self-explanatory, but to me, it's like how quickly that ball starts to pick up front to back. So kind of in the oil, I guess. And like I say, this isn't an exact science, and these are like 1 to 10. So obviously the next factor goes further down the lane than the ion max. And like maybe the next factor needs to be an 8 if the ion max is a 3. But as we fill it in, we'll start to think about it, and maybe these scales should be like 1 to 20, but this is just like a starting point. And then we have the overall hook. So for me, Ion Max is like the strongest ball that we have in our bag. Um, so like I say, this scale being 1 to 10 is probably a little small and a little too simple. But so like someone said vengeance. So let's do vengeance. Now to me, vengeance is still pretty smooth. Um so I think we've already started. I think I'm going to change Ion Max to a 3. I'm going to change Vengeance to a 4.5. And then, because I think that the Vengeance is pretty smooth. I don't think it's as smooth as Ion Max, but I think it's pretty smooth. And then overall length, I think it's probably about a 5. And then the overall hook, say it's a 7.5. So that's kind of like how I think about it. And then when I put these on a table, I kind of take I feel like length and overall hook kind of end up being somewhat similar. I was just trying to do this for a demonstration for the IQ 78 and the Ion Max so we could see like the differences. But like I would do this in like a a cross chart. So you would have on the across on the horizontal axis you would have hook, and on the vertical axis you would have responsiveness. So for example, the Ion Max would be in the bottom right corner because it's the strongest ball and one of the slowest responses. So that's kind of the way I see it. So do people kind of understand that sort of theory? Hey, Patrick, what's up? And see, this is where it gets to be like, if I was to do Equinox, like I think that the Equinox is somewhat similar responsiveness, probably a little bit less than Next Factor, and probably this should be a 7, and this maybe should be a 7.5. And then length for the Equinox, that means that this should probably be a 7.5, and this should probably be a I don't know, like a 6.5 maybe. And then the overall hook for an Equinox is probably 6. And I'll retype that. So thoughts on this? Is this confusing? Is this helping people to understand a little bit? Am I just putting numbers up that aren't really this isn't a very good graphic. I didn't necessarily have a lot of time to think this through exactly. So you're sort of my guinea pigs on trying to explain this. So let me know if you think this is at all helpful. And yeah, and then we'll go from there. Which balls do you want me to add to this? Just let me know. Because like I say, right now, yeah, I mean, we can put every ball in. I'm just okay. Well, that's what I'm saying. This is why if I had somebody else on with me, this would be a little bit. Which part of it? Which part of it would you like me to try and explain? And then I can delve into it a little bit more because I'm trying to like get you to look at it so that when you do a little chart, you can like see where these balls fit, and you don't end up with like 3 or 4 balls that are in a really small spot. If that makes sense. Because you don't want like if you have the chart, you kind of want to have balls in sort of like like not all in the middle and not all in one quadrant. Um, the way I'm looking at response time is how quickly it goes from its side rotation to its forward. So how quickly it transitions from trying to hook to going forward. So for me, like a regular high road is a regular high road is really responsive because when it hits the friction, it changes direction really hard. A um Ion Max is quite a slow responding ball because when it hits the friction, it continues hooking. It doesn't really stop and really go forward. A urethane, for example, it has a long hook window. Like it picks up early, but it has kind of a round motion. So that's kind of how I define it. I think it's always a tiny little bit different for everybody. And some balls are going to be smoother for other people than they are. Um, I'm just trying to see. Patrick says I create each row solid pills hybrid strongest to weakest. Yeah, that like to me, I don't really care if it's a hybrid or a solid or a pearl. Like, so for example, in the hustles, for me, like hustle rip is by far the most responsive. It changes direction the hardest. The like hustle wine for me is a little smoother. Uh, well, it's all relative. So, like, guys who get higher rev rates in general are going to make the balls a little more responsive. Guys with more axis rotation are going to make the balls a little more responsive in general. So this is like totally for how I see it. This isn't necessarily correct for how Patrick would see the balls, for example, or how Eli would see the balls, or how a lefty would see the balls. Um, so that's kind of that's kind of it. It's like create your own chart based on your own experiences, and then you can kind of like watch the balls and the other people are throwing. You find bowlers who are like similar skill sets, similar rev rates, or whatever, and you kind of get an idea of where you think that ball would fit in yours. So it's all a little bit of guesswork. So let's fill in a couple more. So like say Rockstar. Sorry. Rockstar. To me, Rockstar is a little more responsive than Vengeance, right? I have the Rockstar a little cleaner than the Vengeance. And I would say overall Rockstar, I mean, I think it's in the same ballpark for overall hook. Like phase 2 for me is a little earlier than the Vengeance. Sorry. See, I'm already not doing it. I think it's a little more responsive than the Vengeance. I think it's actually a little earlier than the Vengeance, so therefore it's a little stronger. Um, what were some of the other balls that people wanted to add in? Okay, so Transformer, and this is where it becomes kind of interesting because if I do Transformer up, like in the layout that I chose with the not hitting the wing, I think that the Transformer is fairly responsive. I don't think it's actually that much less responsive than the Next Factor. The Next Factor is cleaner, but the Next Factor for me is still quite smooth. Um, Transformer, like I say, I think it's yeah, I think, but it's obviously earlier, so I think it's somewhere around a 6. And then the overall hook for that ball is probably like somewhere in that Rockstar range. It just does it slightly differently. But like Transformer wing, so that's the Transformer with the wing hit. to me, responsiveness is probably down to probably like a 5.5. And then the length is probably like a 5. The overall hook might be probably similar in that 7.5. So you just start to build it up a little bit at a time with the balls. So like for me, like high road, responsiveness, this would probably be like an 8.5. Length, I think it's going to be somewhere similar to Next Factor, 7.5. And then the overall hook, it's probably a little less than an X Factor. So like 4.5. And like overall hook is always very relative because, you're not going to be using a high road at the same time you're using an Ion Max. So, but this is how I start to put it together. And, once we see all of these things, we kind of start to get an idea. And like, some of the balls in the middle, you're going to have more balls in that range because you're going to use them more often. And if you look around the balls that you use the most, then you'll probably have more than one of that type of ball. And the balls that you use like rarely, like if you virtually never use an Ion Max and you have it in your bag, you probably don't need to go and buy a Hyperdrive Solid, because that Ion Max is occupying a role in your bag. You don't need another ball that's somewhat similar to it. Equally, if you use the Ion Max all the time and you never get to like the next factor that's in your bag, then your next ball should probably be like, a phase 2 or a hyperdrive, another strong ball. So let's add a few more in so we can sort of the Viking. Oh, I was on the wrong screen. Right. Let's add the Viking in. For me, the Viking is, I guess the Viking is fairly similar to Equinox for me. For me, it's a little stronger than Equinox. So, it's probably like 6, maybe. Like it picks up a little sooner. So it's probably like, maybe it's an 8. Yeah. And that might be true. But what I'm saying is it's still one of the strongest covers that Storm makes. And it's still a big asymmetrical ball. It is a little higher RG than the Max. So that, like I said, it was only an example. All right, Equinox Solid. So for me, Equinox Solid is very smooth. Probably pretty similar to the Vengeance for me. Lengthwise, I mean, I don't have it massively different overall to the to the wing, to when I hit the wing on the transformer. It's just a little bit. Do you know what? See, this is why these things are always good. I think that this is actually a 4.5, and I think this is probably a 5. And this is how you kind of start to understand, where balls fit. Length is probably a 5. Probably like looking at these balls, probably a 7. How many phase 2s are you drilling at the Open this year? I probably no more than one. Almost certainly yes, because the numbers are, the eye of the beholder, and there'll be some things. This isn't really to me a definitive exercise in being right or wrong. It's just an exercise in trying to think about where you see the balls, whether you have too many balls that are too similar, and what you can do to add to your arsenal, because some of these arsenals, um, you know, um, some of these arsenals, you add polish to the ball, that's going to change it. Adding polish is going to make it a little bit more responsive and a little bit more length. Um, uh, I haven't really been a big phase two guy for a few years, to be honest. Um, there's just so much more oil on the lane now. I kind of, whenever I need like a phase two, I'm tending to be bowling with an asymmetrical ball. Okay, so we got phase two pearl, and then Rockstar amped. Oh, it doesn't seem to want to make me. Ah, well, whatever. It doesn't matter. See, I think phase two pearl is actually a little bit more responsive than the Rockstar amped. So let's have a look at some of the other balls. This is probably like I don't know, maybe this is a 6.5 and this is a 6. This is probably like looking at some of these like 6.5. This is probably somewhat 6.5. And then overall, I mean, yeah, it's probably like a 6.5. And then maybe this is a 6. Okay. Well, he said I sent this link to my buddy. He doesn't chat, but him and I have been bowling together for years, and this is exactly the info I've been looking. Thank you. And I don't want this to come across as like this is like information that is right or wrong. I want this to be a exercise for you guys to look at the balls you have. And here you go. My amped hooks more than my phase two pull. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like for everybody, you're going to have different opinions over some of the balls and where they fit and, how they fit. A lot of people I speak to who really like the Rockstar amped think it's really angular. For me, it's really smooth down the lane. Like I feel like maybe it stands up a little too hard or whatever, but I don't see that ball as being particularly continuous for me. Whereas phase two pearl, I've started to use it a little bit more, started to dial in a couple of layouts, went a little strong with the layout, and I've actually had some reasonably good success. Now, maybe I could do that with Rockstar Amped as well. And if we're in a situation where the Rockstar Amped is looking really good and people are using that and phase two pearl, then I'll probably drill another amped. But right now, I don't really have a huge use case for a Rockstar amped. So this is kind of, why I do this. It like makes sense to me. If phase two pearl isn't a ball I use that often, I probably don't need a ball that's almost, very similar. Whereas if I was using the phase two pearl all of the time, then I'd probably almost certainly be firing in with Rockstar amped. Like Rockstar amped having the AI core and the phase two not. I think that the AI core seems to, anyway, for me, make the balls transition a little faster, and I don't necessarily always love it. So yeah. I don't know if Patrick's still on. I can send him a link and he can come and chat if he wants to. So if you're still watching, Pat, let me know. I can shoot you the link on Facebook Messenger and you can pop in and join the show if you would like to. I don't know what he's doing right now. So but yes, exactly. Are the criteria for response length and hook the determining factors for what you're taking? Do you use asymmetrical pull or other factors to what? I think that Yes, I do. And yes, it is part of it. But I think for me, when I look at these charts and stuff, I'm just trying to um like I'm just trying to build an idea of where I have gaps. And then once I've ranked all of the balls, I can make a determination over which one seems to make the most sense by looking at these numbers. And then looking further into it, into whether they're asymmetrical or solid or pearl or whatever. Um, I tend to like try to take a like a broad spectrum of balls because I mean I drive an F-150, so I'm not leaving many balls at home. Even if I'm going to like a tournament down in San Antonio that's bowling on the house shot, I'm still going to take like 15 or 18 balls with me. Like, what's the point? Like, why am I going to drive all the way down there in a truck? You know, what's an F-150 got? A 7,000 pound payload. Why am I going to worry about an extra 200 pounds of bowling balls? Like, you know what I mean? So, like, I am very much that you just take everything, and when you get there, then you've thrown a few shots with the regular 6 or 8 you take in. You can go, oh shit, I really need something a little smoother, and you run out to your truck and you just get that, and then you've got it. It's nothing more annoying than going, man, I wish I'd brought that X, whatever that ball is, and then getting and driving all that way down and not have it. Um, so, because this goes into what goes into deciding what you take with your car, knowing you'll have options at the tour stops. So, like, yeah, I mean, when I'm traveling around on the tour, I'm probably driving around with like 30 balls, maybe. So I generally have quite a lot of options. And then once I've done this, I will start to look at like having what I call like stacks. So um recently, um, like I've been using the XL a lot. So I was been using like XL, then I'd transition into the Viking, and then depending on how the lanes are, I might drop into Equinox and then the next factor. If the lanes are transition a little faster, I might go Viking straight into next factor. So that's kind of the way I go about it. Um yeah. So you want to add the Cove and Ember onto the chart? Okay, cool. So for me, Cove is a pretty interesting ball because if we're doing responsiveness, I think it's really low. Like for me, this ball is maybe, I mean, Cove might be one of the slowest responsive balls. I mean, I'm almost tempted to do a 2.5. Now length, um, I mean, I don't think it's like super, super early. I just think it's really slow. So, probably something like a 6, maybe even a little further than that. And then the overall for me, the Cove doesn't really hook very much. It's very smooth and it's very like medium. So probably for this one, probably something like I don't know, like a 5.5 maybe. And then Ember, for me, to be honest, I didn't really throw this ball very much, but like probably somewhere around 7. And then length, probably another 7. And then overall hook is probably like a 5.5 maybe. Something like that. Is kind of how I go about it. Um, um yeah, exactly. Do you think Transformer will be a league step up complement to my attention star 15? Yes. Especially if you do one of the up layouts. I think you'll see just an somewhat similar-ish shape to the attention star, but like a lot more rounded. Um, I knew this looked weird. I don't need that. A lot more rounded, I think. So I think it would be a good, like, you could kind of start with the transformer and maybe transition into the attention star. Um, yeah. The third bag gets pricey. Yes, it does. You're right. Generally, when I end up flying to nationals, I just take 6 with me, trying to make a good guess and go from there. Um, Darkborg, thank you for the super chat. He says, my amp is pretty early and not as clean as I was expecting it to be. My step down from it is an IQ AI. It feels like a big gap, amp to AI. Any recs on how to fill that gap? Um, uh, yeah, I mean, for me, into that gap, I think I could fit a next factor. Um, like especially if you just added a little bit of surface to it. I think that would fit in there pretty nicely. Um, uh, Outside of that, um, I mean, maybe even an Equinox. An Equinox might fit in there. I feel like that might end up being a little closer to the amp, but like I think if you've seen the amp this early, I think maybe the Equinox might be something that would get through. Um, Gremlin would be another one. Gremlin would probably be better than the Equinox in that gap, actually. Um, so yeah. So I would say either next factor and maybe a little surface if you think it gets a little bit too clean next to your IQAI, or Gremlin. Um, Hey Danny. The number system, yeah, is we have the responsiveness to the friction, like how long of a hook window it has. So on this chart, a urethane is a low number. A high road, for example, which is really angular, is a high number. Then we have the length, and then kind of the overall hook. And like overall hook is a pretty simplistic thing. And some of these numbers are going to end up treading on each other a little bit. This is really just an exercise in just trying to think about the balls, where they fit, and whether you have just too many that are similar. And having spoke this through, I probably should have made this chart like 1 to 20 for each of these. It's a little bit it's a little bit tough to fit all of them in, to find a spot for all of them. So we got a couple more requests. Um, I I have to remember to switch to my other monitor. Ion Pro Solid, Gremlin, um, Hyperdrive, Pearl. God, I am terrible at typing. I've also got to look around a microphone as well. So on the responsiveness, I think Ion Pro is kind of a middle of the range, like probably somewhat similar to Ember and the Phase 2 Pearl. So, maybe it's a 6.5. And the more I do this, the more I'd start to think some of these numbers aren't quite, perfect. Length, I mean, I feel like it gets down the lane a decent bit. Probably somewhere in that, yeah, probably somewhere in that 6 range. And then the overall hook is probably somewhere like probably somewhere similar to Phase 2 Pearl, just does it a little differently. Like to me, Gremlin is pretty angular. Like it changes direction pretty hard when it wants to change direction. So, I might say this is an 8. I think on the length side, it's probably somewhat similar to the Equinox, maybe a little cleaner than the Equinox, maybe 6.5. And then the overall hook, mean, if Equinox is a 6, it's probably somewhat similar to that. So, Hyperdrive Pearl for me, little smoother than Gremlin. Maybe it's a 7. Hyperdrive Pearl, I feel like it's a little earlier than the Gremlin, so it's a 6. Like maybe overall, and this is where some of these rankings get a little bit off because, like, to me, it maybe is something like that. Um, People are asking me for some older balls. Like level for me is really hard to determine because I never really knew what that ball was going to do from one shot to the next. Um, so like responsiveness, it's probably like 4.5. Length is probably like a 6. Overall hook is probably like a 4. And then like Journey and Summit Peak, I mean, really hard to tell. I mean, I would say Journey is probably somewhat in this same sort of boat as Phase 2 and Rockstar Amped. Summit Peak, yeah, I mean, it's just so hard to tell because I didn't bowl with them at the time with the other balls. So when you don't have them on the lanes at the same time, it becomes really challenging to, see it exactly that way. Same here with like Ultimate Wrecker. I really didn't throw that ball very much. So like it's hard for me to like exactly pinpoint it in. Um, like I say, this exercise was more to give you guys an idea of ways to do it. It's not really because this is so personal and like it's definitely not empirical data, if you know what I mean. It's definitely not like set in stone. It's very much up for opinion, and that makes it like kind of difficult to relate. This is just how I see some of the balls, and like if I go through this because I'm doing it right now, I'd probably clean this list up a little bit. So this is more of a philosophical debate about how to look at the lanes and the balls and come up with um numbers that kind of make sense. So any other questions on this? I am probably going to shut this down. But if you have any other balls that you kind of want to chat about, let me know in the chat and we can I don't use the Attention Star S2. I barely use that ball at all, to be honest. I really preferred like XL and Absolute Power in that grab. Dick Chuck says, what is a good ball for someone out of it for 10 years and getting back into it? I mean, I think that you're going to want something kind of middle of the road. I guess on our side, I think something it depends how much speed you have. Typhoon might not be a bad option. Um, something a little stronger. I mean, Brunswick have that danger zone, which I think is a pretty good deal. What else do we have that I would think that would be a good option? I don't mind the Gremlin either. It really depends on how you throw it. Yeah, but if you haven't bowled for 10 years, it's going to make it a little hard for me to know exactly. Uh, um, so yeah, I mean, I think probably Gremlin wouldn't be a bad choice from us. Um, um, hey, Henry. Origin. Okay. So let's think this through. Like, Origin was a really strong ball. So, like, let's do this the other way. It might make it a little easier. I mean, I feel like Origin was like right up there. I think Origin was at least an 8. And then length. I mean, I thought Origin was probably up there with probably a little less than the Equinox. So probably a 6. And then responsiveness, it was fairly responsive. Probably a 7.5. Yeah. Something like that. I've actually run out of columns now. So yeah. That kind of is where I'm at with that. Like, if you plot this into like an XY graph and you just sort of start writing the balls in on the graph, I think it starts to make a little more sense as well. So I think it's a fun exercise. But you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be exact. It's just something to give you some ideas, I think is more. So there I had the phase 2 as 5 on a responsive, 4.5 on length, and 8 on the overall hook. What is a good asymmetrical replacement for phase 2? Probably this transformer wouldn't be terrible in the up position. If you want something a little stronger than that, hyperdrive probably would work out all right. Yeah, original DNA. Didn't get to throw that one very much. That was a short pattern ball. No, I actually don't have any tournaments, and a couple of the tournaments around here have actually been cancelled because Texas is petrified of ice. They have no like way of dealing with it, so they just cancel everything. So we're supposed to have the ice storm from hell. Everybody is absolutely ridiculous here, so it's going to be freezing for 2 days running. So currently there is no toilet paper, there is no bottled water in the supermarkets or Costco because everybody is losing their mind and nuts. But there we go. But all right, guys. Well, if anybody has any more questions, fire them in quickly. I think I'm going to wrap this up. I don't want to stay for too long and just ramble on. I felt like this was a good exercise for people to kind of just look at the balls a little differently, kind of just get some thoughts on where some of the balls that they have currently fit and where they should go to add more balls in. And this isn't like the only way of doing this. This is just like a slightly different way of doing it, and it should be combined with other knowledge that you have. Whether that be asymmetrical or pearl or solid or shiny or dull or, all of those things. So it's just like, so you get a whole package of information and then you can make a better buying decision. Like you really don't want to end up buying like all of the same balls. And this is really my way of trying to help people not do that. And it is also my way of doing it for when I go out on tour so that, when I start to, get to a 25 or a 30 ball arsenal, I'm just not like going, oh my God, I'm just taking a guess. And yeah, like I say, once you start to add more things in, hey, Robert, thanks for the super chat. Just in time. Do you see a big difference between the transformer no wing drill to drilled in the wing, and do both fit in a 6 or 8 ball arsenal? Yes, I see a fairly significant difference when I drilled through the wing to when I hadn't drilled through the wing. Unfortunately, my through the wing ball is being shipped back from Storm, so I don't currently have it. Otherwise, I would have filmed some content with it. I see the through the wing one as being less useful and much more of a niche option. It is very smooth for me, flares quite a lot. I don't anticipate me using it that much, um, just in general, because of how smooth it is. I do think that with me tracking so high and having to drill through the wing, when you drill through the wing, it puts the mass bias right underneath the thumb, and that's almost in my track. So the smarter people than me can like kind of make a determination, but I feel like that makes a little bit of a difference, layout wise. So um I wouldn't necessarily have both in a 6 or 8 ball arsenal. I would have a transformer and an Equinox solid drilled kind of similarly, and I think that that would gap better than the two different layouts on the transformer. I do, however, have another transformer that I'm going to drill down and miss the wing, and I'm interested to see how that reacts because supposedly, from talking to a few of the guys who've done that and missed the wing, it's kind of just like the same relationship as normal. You like, when you go down, it flares a little less, kind of get that like longer window. So that might be interesting. So it'd be missing the wing twice, one up, one down. Go from there. I didn't do the hyperdrive, but looking at these numbers, I would think that the hyperdrive is probably like on the responsive scale, probably around a 5, on the length, around a 4, and on the overall hook, probably an 8.5 would be where I would see it. Hey, Jeannie, she says, has Tina drilled the transformer? Yes. We drilled it for her on Monday night. It was way stronger than I thought it was going to be. I did a 4.5 by 4.5 by 2.5. And for me, it was like in my arsenal, the Transformer is a little bit stronger than the Viking. In Tina's arsenal, it was about 4 boards right with her feet. The Viking was better reaction because it didn't force her as far away from the friction. But the Transformer that she drilled was very strong, but it wasn't strong like an Ion Max where it hooked and kind of ended up quitting a little bit. Like I felt like it had like a little bit more um like it had a little bit more power at the pins, shall we say. So but yeah, she went with a 4.5-inch pin, a 4.5-inch mass, and a 2.5-inch buffer. So yeah. Whether she'll ever be able to strike with it, I don't know. But on on Monday, she started off with a double, and then it just started forcing her too far away from the friction. And she went back to her Viking and crushed them. So XL Origin Viking Transformer gives something different for someone with less revs than yourself. I'm a little confused what the question is. Like, are you asking me a question or are you telling me? I don't understand. It's probably my fault. If Chris was here, he could probably translate what you're asking me. Yes, Viking's been good for Tina also. I think Next Factor is good also. You just gotta I think you have to keep up with the surface on it. Like I think it needs a little bit of surface. I think once it starts to glaze over again, I think it gets a little bit kind of nothingy. It's not that responsive and it doesn't um it doesn't really have that same pop. Once you add a little bit of surface back to it, I think it's a good step down from Viking. Um, does it fit in my arsenal? Yeah, I think the only thing that I've been a little concerned about with Transformer when I've used it a little bit is the fact that I wasn't 100% sure where the Viking would fit. Because I feel like I can get into the Transformer a little early, and then it kind of steps on it a little bit, the Viking. A bit in the same way the Viking kind of stepped on the Equinox a little bit. I could get into it a little sooner, and I could use it for almost the whole time I could use Equinox. So then it became a little bit challenging as to when I would use the Equinox. And I think once I get a few more reps in like tournament settings, I'll start to understand. I do think that the if the pattern is a little bit more medium, a little bit on the shorter side, that sort of like 42 and less, I think that the Viking is a little bit more continuous through the pins, like whereas the Transformer tends to burn up a little bit earlier. So for me, Transformer is a little cleaner than XL and a little earlier than Viking. Um, um, could you add XL in? Yeah, like for me, XL responsive wise is probably something like a 5. Length is probably something kind of like a 5, and the overall hook is probably like a 7.5 or an 8. Um, is where I would see that fit. Yeah, I wouldn't say like crush it with surface, but um, definitely, like giving it that like the gentle sort of like 2000 just to um, you know, uh, give it that, almost give it the paddles, like get it started, so to speak. Um, um, thanks. Yes, I'm going out on tour this year. Luis, do you have a question? I'll hang on for you to answer the question. But thanks for the super chat. I don't want to close it down if you actually have a question. If you're just sending a tip, let me know. I appreciate that too. But yeah. Um, Next week, I will try to go through sort of a step downs on some of the balls that we have right now. We've got a couple more coming. So it's all about, trying to figure out where they're going to fit and get the Arsenal ready for February 16th, the first stop up in Dallas at Euless. So if you're in the area and you want to come and cheer on me and Chris and Ryan. Yeah, should be fun. Here we go. Glad I stayed. Thanks, Luis. I have a transformer drill, 4.5 by 4.5 by 3.5, which is pinned down, drilled in the wing. I'm not sure that it can. Like, you must have a really. You must have what's your PAP? Because it would be really hard to drill through the wing with only having sorry, man. You have a really weird. That makes sense. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to picture it. That's fine, like a 4.5. Okay. Do you think Viking makes sense for me? Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to gap much bigger than if you hadn't drilled through the wing. So drilling through the wing, I think, makes that ball smoother, a lot more flair. So I think that drilling the Viking, probably drilling an up layout, maybe a little weaker on the pin, is going to gap those balls a little further and give you a nice 1-2 punch, like kind of use the transformer on the fresh. And when you start to have to move left a little bit and it doesn't really want to get up the hill, the, kind of get back to go through the pins as well, then the Viking should be a nice, 1-2 off that. Um, so yeah. So yeah, I think that is probably going to be the best way to have a Viking and a transformer in your arsenal if you drill through the wing and then drill the Viking just a little weaker. So all right, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being part of the show. I hope that I cleared something up rather than make it even more confusing. Um, the number charts for some people make it clearer, for other people just make it way more confusing. We all look at the information slightly differently. I just couldn't really think of a good way of doing that XY chart. Um, and like starting to move the balls around on that. I kind of like doing the chart a little bit, like writing it out. Um, But this seemed like it was an easier way to display it and kind of chat about it while we were doing the show. So if you get a chance over the weekend, stay safe. But if you want to buy something, buy it from our friends. They are Storm Rotogrip 900 Global Turbo Coolwick, Platinum Ford Lightning Strikes, and of course our friends up in Shawnee Fire Lake Bowling Center. Thanks for being part of the show again. We appreciate you. Chris and Ryan are still in Japan. They will be next week. I will try not to be lazy. I will try and find a guest, but you know that I can talk for 50 minutes by myself. So thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye now.